When you have a choice of where to play something on your bass, where should you play it and why? Hi, I'm Luke from Become a Bassist, and in this bass lesson you're going to get the lowdown on why the same thing sounds different when played in different places on the same bass and why it matters for you. The bass is kind of weird, right? It's not like the piano or the xylophone where you only have one option to play every note. On the bass, actually on all stringed instruments, we have multiple ways to play the majority of our notes, and they all sound slightly different. This makes it tricky to know exactly where to play everything, but there are some guidelines that you can use to help you figure out the best place to play nearly anything on your own bass. First though, let's have a listen to the different sounds we can get from just one single note. Now do this little exercise along with me. Pick up your bass and play your open G string. Yeah? Next, try playing the 5th fret on your D string, then the 10th fret on your A string, and then finally the 15th fret on your E string. Yeah? Now these are all the same exact note. That's G, 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 yeah? But they all sound slightly different, right? And they feel different too. Now I'm not sure exactly how much you can hear this through your speakers right now, but you'll almost certainly hear it in your own bass and feel it in your own bass. But the general guideline is this: when you play your notes on the lower sounding strings, that's your E and the A strings, the kind of fuller and deeper the tone seems to be. And on your higher sounding strings, the sound will be a bit thinner and a bit brighter. Some people even describe it as being aggressive sounding. Have a listen to the difference between the open G and the G on the E string. Yeah, on the open G, very clear, very bright, and the same G on the E string, very dark and deep sounding, even though they're the exact same note. Now sometimes it absolutely makes sense to use your lower sounding strings and play higher up on your neck, going kind of this way. For example, if you wanted to do a big epic slide, you can do that on your E string. Imagine you're aiming for this high E. It's pretty easy to slide into it and slide out of it. Yeah, it's probably also possible on the A string as well. Same exact note, that same E, but it doesn't have quite the same effect, right? Because the slide isn't quite as long. Now, especially if you're being amped up in a kind of loud room, this makes a big difference. And that effect doesn't really work at all on the D string because there's almost nothing to slide into or away from. It just doesn't really work. So how does this apply directly to bass playing? Well, let's take a bass line and play it on 3 different places in the neck and look at why you might play them at each point. Now let's start off by playing it off the E string. It's going to sound like this. Yeah, just like that. Now this is on our lowest sounding strings, right? So that means that this will be the kind of darkest, roundest, fullest sounding version of this bass line. You could use kind of this position if it was in like a chorus and you wanted to kind of really fill out the bottom end, or you could also use it in a more kind of chill section, and if you didn't want to draw too much attention to the bass part, that'd be great too. It's very, very song dependent, and it might change even between different sections of a song. Just make sure that if it's in a more relaxed section that you're not playing too hard in your plucking hand. Next, let's try the same bass line off the A string. This one's a bit brighter, right? This makes sense since we're on a higher sounding string. Notice as well in this example, I'm playing it across 3 strings rather than 2. This means I can keep everything in position for my left hand, don't have to move it at all. But it also means that I'm not really getting the slides that gave the last example that bit of character, all those kind of things in there. You could put them in this position, but it kind of does take you out of that nice position there. Now some people are okay with lots of shifting, others prefer to economize their motion. Neither is either right or wrong, it's just different preferences. You could also play the same bass line off the A string across 2 strings. This means we don't get the brightness, of playing on the G string, which you may want, you may not. Once again, it all depends on the song. And also doing this, we do get those little slides. Just like that. Now you could use this area of your bass as kind of a middle ground. You could play a whole song here and it would be totally fine. It's not too bright or thin, but it's not too dark and full and kind of overwhelming either. Finally though, let's play the same thing starting on the D string. Now this one, we're only using the two highest sounding strings, the D and the G. So this is going to make it sound the brightest. Now it makes sense with the guideline that we talked about, right? Sometimes it makes sense to use open strings, although a lot of bass players will do basically anything they can to avoid using them. They pretty much always make themselves known in the comment section as well. There is a reason for it though, and that's because open strings can sound significantly different than fretted notes. And that's usually because the nut of your bass is made from a different material than the frets themselves, so the strings will actually vibrate in a different way. Now the only exception to this is if you have a bass with a 0 fret. Now this is where the nut of your bass is kind of pushed back and almost replaced with a regular fret. Now that means an open string on a 0 fret bass should sound like one that's being fretted just kind of normally. Let's have a listen to all of the examples back to back though. The first darkest one. The second one. Third one. See how it gets progressively brighter and brighter? Now none of these are correct or wrong or anything like that. It's just going to be depending on the song and the preference and the feeling that you want the bass line to have. Now it can be tricky to know where you can play everything on your bass if you don't know what notes you're playing. For example, if you don't know that you're playing a B flat, then it'll be a little bit trickier to find the other B flats on your bass. To make it simple to know exactly where every single note is though, I created the ultimate guide to learning your bass fretboard. It's a completely free resource with 3 videos plus a 14-page PDF guide to help you every step of the way. And if that wasn't enough, there's also 2 fretboard knowledge tests you can take to gauge how well you know your fretboard right now. Like I said, it's completely free and you can get it from the first link in the description of this video. I'd love to see you in there as well. To recap though, you learned about how the location of where you played everything on your bass made a huge difference to the sound of your notes. You learned that the more you used your lower sounding strings, like the E and the A, the deeper and fuller your sound would seem, and the more you used your higher sounding strings, the brighter and thinner your sound would seem, maybe even a little bit aggressive sounding. And that's even if you're playing the exact same notes. Now, if fretboard knowledge is what you need, I'd love to see you in that ultimate guide to learning your bass fretboard. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'm Luke from Become a Bassist. Make sure and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in another video soon. Cheers.